Happy Monday to all my awesome listeners today. Hope everyone's enjoying the weeks that seem to be flying by this summer. Fam and I just spent a week up in Delaware at a beach, making some special memories with my wife's family. We had a great time, and I know school's starting up for all those that have kiddos in that age. My little challenge for you all. Are you making an effort to find blessings in the moments that are making up your life? I wanted to put out this episode as a Monday bonus guest episode with my good friend, George Salas. I mentioned George as one of my partners in Friday's episode, doing some amazing stuff in the STR world. And I just wanted to follow up from that shorter episode 18, with our interview. Hopefully you can pair those two together as a resource for you guys in just learning more about short-term rentals, as well as developing a business and developing yourself and personal growth, which is one of the main topics that we talked about in this episode. I love picking his brain on being a dad in this episode and how someone as motivated and driven as George is spending his time and where his values are. He's someone that will push you to be the best version of yourself that you can be just by listening to what he has to say. So buckle up for episode 19 with George Salas. Are you a hardworking dad, juggling family responsibilities while dreaming of building wealth through real estate? Welcome to the Invested Fathers Podcast, where we explore how to balance investing and fatherhood. I'm your host, Kenny Johnson, founder of East West Capital. Over the past 5 years, I've been buying real estate to free up my time and secure my family's future. Now I'm here to help you do the same. Join me as we navigate the real estate world together, building wealth and strengthening our families. As my grandma always said, East West, home's best. Hey, George, how you doing today, man?
Man, I'm doing blessed, brother. Glad to be here. It's an honor to be in your podcast. Thank you for the invite, man.
Thank you, George. George Salas, everybody. George, go ahead and tell everybody just a little bit about who is George Salas.
Man, I don't know where to start, but I like to say that George Salas is a fantastic father, first of all. I am a visionary. I'm a short-term rental expert and an operator. We love real estate. You already know this. Invested Fathers Podcast, right? So the best of both worlds right there. Mm-hmm. So just a quick synopsis of my story. So my story started when I was 6, right? I used to live in Peru my entire younghood. From 0 to 15 years old, I was there. And at 6 years old, my parents were getting a divorce. And they were splitting. And we actually moved into this smaller town where I grew up. Right. And there was 50,000 people in that town. And essentially we moved into my grandma's house, an adobe house that was an ancient type of house. And half of the house had collapsed because of an issue with the with the ceiling, the roof, the tiles. We were so poor, Kenny, that at some point we did not have funds to fix the roof, the tiles. The entire half of the property collapsed. And we had to live there for several 6, 7, 8 years. At the age of 15, my father came back into my life, and literally he moved about a block from our house because he wanted to be close to us, right? So, but my mom was planning already on just remarrying, so she found someone, and that's how we were able to move to the United States. But the thing was, we left without even saying bye to my father. So that was one of the things that I'll never forget. And it was, Mom had to do that, right? So I didn't see my father again for several years. So I lived without him for many of my young years, right? And from there, we were over here, and I went into hospitality, worked in the bars, and then we went into launching a marketing company at about 25 till about 33. So for 8 to 9 years, I worked in the hospitality service industry. And then we ran a marketing company that did over 1,000 events over that course. And after that, it was more of a nightlife thing, right? We would market, promote, host, and produce events all throughout town. So it was like 4 or 5 nights a week. And then obviously there were some day events or one-off events. But it was great while I was young. But at the end of the day, when I left, I felt like I never built anything. You know, when I transitioned into real estate, the reason why I left was because I ended up investing into our own venue, and it was someone else's deal. I knew nothing about investing, but I invested as an LP, and it was over $300,000 over a course of about 2 years at the age of 30. Okay. So cash money, right? This guy reached out to us and he was one of the owners of who we worked for. We had contracts with him, two different contracts for his venue, and ended up investing that much money. I did not realize that, first of all, I didn't do enough due diligence and research on the operator. So I didn't get to know him. He had this forefront and he ran the entire place to the ground. So we opened up in 2016, and 18 months later, we got shut down because of a landlord lawsuit. The entire partnership lost $1.3 million. 300 plus of that was my own personal money. Then in addition to that, I had some loans I had taken out on a personal for the business. So you can't imagine, I'm not going to say anything else, but it was rock bottom
Wow.
for about 3 to 4 months. I was really lost. I didn't know what I was doing because I was trying. But then I realized that when I decided to make the switch, right, the leap, I made a decision, and the decision came from a phone call, right? This was a breakthrough for me. A friend said, "Hey, George, you need to come to my property, my flip." And there's a friend here out of Houston. I went there. Next day, made a decision, right? When you commit, and internally, something was telling me, right, that I needed to do this, that I could do this, that I was better than where I was at. So internally, I woke up. Externally, I had some support and some inspiration, and then everything is history from there. I went in personally, and I did over 20 deals my first year, brought in 300,000 in revenue, including I already had 10 short-term rentals by the end of my first year, right? Rental arbitrage short-term rentals. I wasn't buying yet. I was flipping properties. So I had 6 or 7 properties going at one time. You've done a lot of that. So you can imagine how hard it is to have 6 or 7 rehabs at once. Oh my God. And on top of that, I was wholesaling real estate. So imagine 16, 18-hour days every day. That was the beginning of my real estate career. But from there, everything is gold, right? We continue to scale. We scaled a little too fast. In COVID, we had a hit. And from that hit, it gave me this awakening. We were still testing 2 years into a new business or new businesses, right? Real estate wholesaling, flipping, and short-term rentals. And I realized I needed cash flow. I needed more stability. I needed more consistency. So I transitioned my model to a little bit more high-end homes, or we do now, lifestyle type of short-term rentals. And 2 years ago, my wife and I, after being married for a little bit, we had our son, as you already know this, and then everything went gold from there. We started working on our fund, and then I joined Race Masters. I got to meet you, and again, the rest is history. Today, we're operating quite a bit more real estate, almost $10 million in real estate personally. We're locking in a $10 million portfolio right now that I think I've mentioned to you. We're under LOI. So by the time this recording comes out, I'm pretty sure we'll be golden. So that's a 3-minute, maybe 4-minute synopsis of everything that has happened over the last 15 years, man. Thank you.
George, thank you for sharing that journey. Wow. So many amazing things have happened to you, brother. And first off, just congrats. I feel it's an honor just to have a conversation with you about what you've done. And of course, George is one of the humblest guys I know. Every time I ask him how he's doing, he's like, I am so blessed. And it actually means a little more knowing the half a house for years blows my mind. And I'm just thinking as a parent, because I'm 36. How old are you now, George?
I'll be 40 August 6th. So I'm 39 right now.
Okay. So we're in our 30s and we have kids. And I'm just putting myself in the shoes of your mom or your dad in Peru. I've never been to Peru. So it's very foreign to me, this whole concept of just like making ends meet and living in a less than desirable situation. And then emotionally, you're in your teens. Your dad moves closer to you. Your mom remarries, and she says, we're going to United States. What were some of the thoughts, if you can go back there, of just emotions and state of mind coming to America?
Yeah, absolutely. Before we found out that we were making a transition, I've always wanted to be a great provider. And it started when I was young, right? Being a provider for my family one day, which I am now, but I wanted to help my mother. I would see her struggle, but we were happy. We always had we had enough, right? We had food and everything was fine. We're eating well. We didn't live like people live in the United States, right? It wasn't like that. we lived in half of a house made out of adobe with sugarcane ceilings, and you could see the outside skies from your bedroom.
You had your own
Right?
skylight.
There you go. But when I found out, I don't know, it was just a feeling of fear,
Hmm.
sadness, excitement, happiness at the same time. It was very mixed because it literally, I felt like my entire life was splitting. I didn't grow up with my father for the for the second half of my 15 years, right? So from 6 to 14, 15, I didn't grow up with my father, and he was far away. We would talk to him, but again, he came back into my life. So we were starting to get closer again. And then all of a sudden, I can't tell him that we're leaving, right? So it is a combination of, I still remember what it felt like to walk away from my family without saying goodbye. It was terrifying. I would say more terrifying, more fear, and more sadness than excitement to
Mhm.
build a new life. Because
Mhm.
I was just thinking about, the moment, and I was thinking about how much closer I wanted to be with my father, right? So it worked out for the best at the end of the day. We're
Mhm.
here today, you and I,
Mhm. Mhm.
and that's good. We were literally about to go visit him for a whole month yesterday. We couldn't make it over there because of an illness our son was having, or is
Yeah,
having.
yeah, share. Let's keep going there because in light of our listeners listening, there's this unresolved of George leaves. He talked to his dad since? He is building wealth. He's losing wealth. He's rebuilding wealth, providing for his own family that's starting. What's the status with you and dad right now?
Today, my dad and I are closer than ever. We talk pretty much once or twice a week. We do this WhatsApp, FaceTime, right? And he gets to see my son Ethan, who's almost 2, every time we talk. So I call him in the evenings or on the weekends, and he gets to enjoy. We chat and we plan our trip together because we're trying to do a once a year longer trip so we can spend some time. And now he's preparing to sell his home in Peru and spend some of the years here. So what I'm doing is building out the garage apartment here in my home. We'll have a place for him,
Oh,
a little
awesome.
separated from the entire house, right?
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
I think it's a blessing. We are so close. I can't describe that, but it wasn't like that before. We were okay. We were cool, and I loved him, and I still love him even more than ever before. But before it was like I felt like he had left us, even though we left, right? Just because whenever there's a divorce, you internally and subconsciously you start developing these hurts, and I had to forgive him, right? I had to forgive my father for the mistakes he had, and I had to love him the way he was and he is. And
Mhm.
same my mom, because
Mhm.
when there is a separation, I mean, you understand that it's never one person's fault, right? Ever. Both have to be in control of their actions, their words, and it's just never, right? So I can't blame either of them for what happened. They did their best, and that's what I know. And that's all I want, right? I just wanted reassurance that they were doing their best, and they were. Because as we grow up, we have also grown up with our own parents, right? That have taught us. So they grew up with their own parents' beliefs,
Mhm.
just internalizing their
Mhm.
subconscious. And
Mhm.
that's where the decisions came. But the difference between us and them is that we have discovered this path of entrepreneurship, growth, personal insights, and really growing internally so that we can live a better life while my parents didn't. They didn't have the opportunity to grow into personal development like we have, right? But anyway, I went a little too
No,
far there.
no, no, no. It's really good. Part of what I feel is very insightful and very interesting is when I ask, who is George Salas? I love hearing where people go with that, only because through these stories of understanding your background and your upbringing, we start picking up the values and the core of what you've latched onto. You mentioned provider. I would say resilient. Like you're when you get knocked down, you get back up again. And now you're even providing for your dad through this garage and other things. So we start seeing, okay, he makes money or he succeeds in something. What does he do with it? Like how does he keep moving? And how does he react to bad things? You mentioned we're recipients of our upbringing. Your parents received information from their parents. You received information from your parents. Now you are a
Mhm.
dad. So let's talk about you as a dad now. What are some things that have happened since Ethan was born that rather were accentuated from his arrival or have become, more clear or has changed you in light of being a dad?
Number one, it has completely changed my life and understood that when someone that came from inside of you is born, like that was a life-changing moment myself. And now as I see him growing up, he's got the energy, the drive, and the vibrancy that has come from me. And I see that and I love it. And I think also the values of respect, of caring, of sharing, so many of the values. And right now, as he turns 2, we're teaching him about being a respectful little young boy. At the age of 2, he says, thank you. He says, please. When we make sure that he does that for everything. So little things like that.
Big things. As well as that is a big thing. That is a starting point, a foundation block, I would say. So kudos. Sorry for stopping you. Keep going.
Yeah, no, it's okay. The little things are the big things. The little things, just like Coach Wooden says, little things are the big things. What else? He's literally helped me do one big thing that I'll never forget. He has helped me become more patient, understanding, because it requires you to become that person in order to take care of someone that doesn't know how to express himself, right? He just only cries. I used to be very impatient. So I've been developing more patience. You could tell probably some of us are that way because of how eager we are to change the world, to get things done, to execute. You probably are the same way, but we have to develop that patience, right? So my wife, Mona, and my son have both taught me to be more patient. So that's one big thing, patience, and just understanding, big time, big change.
Now, I can't help but put myself in your shoes of remembering, what have I been tested on patience for me? And even this morning, trying to get ready for the show, want to make sure I was, on time, have my microphone ready, everything set up. And Moses wants to play this Huckle Buckle Beanstalk game. And I was like, okay, I'll play one round. And you hide this little thing, and he hit it, and I couldn't find it. And I was like, just tell me where it is so I can get out of here. And I had a moment where I just closed my eyes, and I was like, this is the stuff that for me to fly off the handle or yell or show him that I don't care about him, that defeats the whole purpose of us being good dads. Like that moment, I feel like, of just playing this game with him, that yes, we all have our schedules. We have things that are quote unquote more important, but these feelings that our kids feel toward us. And I feel like one of the worst things we can do is let them feel they're not important. I have this phone in my hand. I'm looking down. Sorry, whatever you're saying, not important. Or, hey, we're playing this game. I got another thing I got to get to. So let's just get through this game. We get crushed when we feel that with others. And why do we feel like their little things, quote unquote, little things are little, they're so big to them?
Exactly.
I love the patience and understanding.
There's just one big thing too that recently I have learned about people themselves. I recently went to a weekend retreat with my wife, Mona, a marriage retreat. We're always working on 10xing our marriage. I learned that people have a need, internal need. You have to meet someone's need at the moment. Okay. So when you are dealing with your kid and he starts misbehaving, he can't communicate, or whether he can or not, there's a need that he's wanting you to meet. It is his most important need. And he's developed that since he was born. And I found out that my wife's need is a need for attention, right? So you as a parent, you as a husband, you need to meet that need at the moment when they need it. But for you to meet it, you need to understand what their need is, right? So insane, amazing what I've learned just a couple weekends ago. So when he's, hey, like I'm misbehaving, I'm trying to do this, or he's trying to get your attention, it's probably because he's wanting that, has that need at the moment. And if you meet it, then everything else comes down, meaning like he won't misbehave. So that's what I learned. And I thought that was pretty cool.
Awesome. Let's talk about goals with our children. This is something that I'm constantly trying to assess, and Ethan is too. We are both entrepreneurial in mindset. We want to build things. We want to grow things. We have work that needs to get done. I would say you and I both love our work. So work is not the enemy. It's not like we're begrudgingly going to work each day. We love what we do. Talk to me about what are some things that you want to instill in how you act today. And we've talked about your DNA a little bit of how you're wired to provide. And maybe some light bulbs came on in investing. Talk to me about what are some things that are maybe forefront of mind as a dad that you're working on with your family, not just your son, but like your marriage as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think right now and throughout the next years, and this is a continuous, never-ending thing, but when you build your infrastructure, meaning you're personally developing yourself from a young age, then you start shaping your mind, Kenny. You start shaping your mind so much that it ingrains and it just becomes the you. So the most important thing that I'm working with my family, myself, I've been doing this for 6, 7 years already, fully deep into personal growth. I've been working on that. My wife is also into personal growth, not as much as me, obviously, right? We're different, but my son, I would like us to build a personal development infrastructure so that when he is 10, 11, 12, 13, 15, we don't have to try to change him, right? Or he doesn't have to try to get some of these habits outside. He's already got those great habits of working in himself, right? Such as being respectful, being growth minded, being a little leader, being a great communicator, right? Being forgiving, ask for things and instead of demand things, like little things like that are so important, right? So that's one of the most important values, I would say, right? The personal growth. That's my core value. So as I go, kids and even people in general do what they see other people doing, right? I practice that all day, every day, right? So leadership second. You would imagine maybe you could think that a 2-year-old kid doesn't know how to be a leader, but if you teach him, right, and you talk to him like he is a 15, 18-year-old human being, they understand you.
Yeah.
And then they start becoming the same person you are showing to them. So keeping our calm, being great leaders towards them, it's going to make them develop themselves, because between 0 to 7, all they're doing is just sucking in information and behaviors, right? Everything is going to be ingrained in their subconscious for the rest of their lives. So we are very cautious about what we do. And when it slips, we're like, oh no.
Did he see that? No. Did he hear it? Oh no.
Yeah.
Yes. Let's talk the personal development. Since I've known you, and then let's just say a year and a half. So we don't have a forever background, but ever since I've known you, you have always consistently shared with me how you are developing and how you are investing in yourself. And I feel like to some listeners, that might sound like this guy is selfish. Like he's just doing all this, but what does that even mean, investing in yourself? But I feel like I know a little bit of what that means for you, just in like the conferences you're going to, et cetera. But share with me, what does that look like to invest in yourself? Because I feel like, again, you could think I'm a sacrificial person. I'm a good dad. I'm always pouring into others. That's my thing, others. But there is a true sense of, okay, this is what I mean by investing in myself or personal development. Talk about that.
For me, personal development, personal growth means essentially you putting time aside every day for you to learn about one area of life, train on it, and practice it. So one for me could be habits, right? My work habits, my personal habits, meditation, which keeps me calm. Everybody has their own routines or their own way to develop themselves personally, but you cannot do it without learning the basics of it, right? So my number one platform to do that is called Growth Day, right? I follow this this mentor coach for 6 years already, Brendan Burchard. He's one of the world's number one personal development coaches. So he has his own platform. In his platform, there's a way for me to go in there every morning and journal my thoughts of how I want to feel, right? So I become intentional. I wake up with an intention. I do my little meditation. I write down what I want to feel. I write down my goals. And creating those routines is personally developing yourself. Then I sit down and start doing my planning. That's planning rather than going through the day, working through the motions throughout your day. That's a completely different game I used to be in 2017, 18, 19, right? And then when I started really inputting the personal development strategies, skills, tactics that I learned, now just no matter how much work, how much stuff, how much family issues, like right now, right, with the illness or just movement in your life from different angles, you can handle everything. Why? Because now you've centered yourself, right? Every morning, you're not worrying about all the bad things. You're planning your day blocking time for everything you need to do. For me, that's personal development, right? Doing
Gotcha.
all the little things. But the number one thing that has changed my entire life, Kenny, and I think it could change everybody's life, is just taking 30 minutes out of your day every single day to learn something new. And I'm not talking about going all over the place. I'm just talking about, let me give you an example. Growth Day has a 10 to 15 minute clip. It's called Daily Fire. Every day there is a framework, and it's all about you, right? Like self-regulating, right? Coherence, respect, many topics, right? Don't have to go even deeper, but take 30 minutes to learn and take 30 minutes to plan. That sets up your day. If you don't do anything else, take 30 minutes to learn every day in the morning, take 30 minutes to plan every day, and your life will change. The planning allows you to have a more restful, coherent, peaceful day, no matter how many 20, 30, 40 things you have on your plate. So that's the planning for me. I could go all day, Kenny.
No, I hear you. No, that's really good, George. Yeah, because I was going to say to those that are, you mentioned the 2017, 18, 19, there was a time in your life that you felt like you were reactive, maybe. I forget how you termed it, but just running around. There's a sense I feel like that today in regards to I have this, I have these maybe 2 or 3 things I need to do today, but then there's a lot of just things around that I just don't, that just happened to me. Mm-hmm. What were some things in your life that happened during those years, or let's just say you're talking to me here, that helped you? Growth Day seems like a great resource. So you might be like, just get Growth Day and you're good. But there had to be something that happened where you were rather the clarity of why worked for you, or some specific habit worked for you. What was the changing point? What got you to be more planned?
Yeah, there's one book specifically that gave me a fantastic framework to just start developing some of these habits and creating a routine. And then I made it my own. Okay. And it was called The Miracle Morning. So by Hal Elrod. So when I discovered that book, I took everything Brandon talks about, put it into a habit, and created my own. That was the big change for me, right? Creating smaller habits, because we're creatures of habit, right? So, and it takes a while to develop them. But once you develop them, it's natural. We don't have to try to do it or anything like that, right? So that one resource was it. Secondly, I think just I'm an addict for listening to audibles. So whatever topic I'm working on that quarter, right? I go deep into audibles. I track my audibles, right? So I do about 30 to 40 hours every single month. When I'm under, I'm wondering why. Oh, maybe I had this thing that week or this month, right? So I track my audibles within the app. And every quarter I focus on one particular topic. So this quarter for me is raising capital. So I'm learning about different areas, and raising capital is all marketing. So I'm going marketing, raising capital books, marketing, raising capital books, right? So that one habit allows me to have a few things, Kenny. When you read different books, it's not, to me, some people might say different, but it's not, think about it. It's not about applying every little thing that the book tells you. It's about changing your beliefs on certain things and learning what other people are doing out there that's working for them. Because once you understand what different groups are doing, you can make it your own and see, hey, this thing might work for me, or this strategy might work for me, or this one, I don't have time for that one, or I don't have the team for that strategy, right? Or whatever reason it is, you learn, you become wise. Then you figure out what you can apply from that wisdom, right? So for me, growth books has been my number one tactic, or just what I do every single day. Last night on the way back from the hospital, right? From my son's in the hospital right now, on the way back, I listened to 30 minutes of this particular book called They Ask You Answer, okay? And it's a marketing book, right? Focused on when your customers ask, you answer. So it's focused on creating something specific for your own clients, right? So again, one little thing you look at, you learn that one thing, that one topic, and then you're like, okay, this sounds really cool, right? Maybe I should apply that. Maybe I shouldn't. But if you put yourself into many topics, now you've got wisdom. You have a perspective that's completely different than everybody else that doesn't understand that, because most people just have one way they do things, and they're closed-minded because they don't want to try different things. And also, they haven't got that perspective. Books are perspective. And then you can apply them later. I've read so many books that I haven't applied, but then all of a sudden, 2 years down the road, my personal life or my business gets to that level. And I know that one topic. And I go back to that book, reread it again, and I'm like, maybe it's the time right now. But I already knew it. And I know that resource is there for me, and I can go back to it anytime.
George, I love it. I would say The Rich Dad Poor Dad, which is a cliche book, of course, but that happened to me. That same thing happened to me. I read it, didn't apply anything, just it was there. 2 years later, a year and a half later, something happened where I wasn't where I needed to be to really do things. Maybe I was, but I didn't feel like I was when I first listened to the message. But after time, I feel like maybe I leveled up to some degree, at least in my mind. And I started, it clicked. Oh, I need to get out of this job that is not what I love doing and use money, etc. Man, I feel like you're just this warrior on a mission. Every quarter, you're just absorbing these truths and wisdom things that are shaping you to who you are today. Man, in a year, we need to talk and see what 4 things you've leveled up with to all those. How do you pick your topics? The raising capital, marketing, what's the next one, or what are your thoughts there?
So I pick them based on what I'm working on that year. I mean, you could create your goals all you want, right? But sometimes you find obstacles on the way to achieve your goals. So you got to focus and into that one obstacle so that you can overcome it by finding other people that have done it, the resources, or just creating different perspectives. So I pick them as I go. So last year was all about finance structure, and it was really figuring out how to build this fund. Right. We already know short-term rental operations. We operate many properties nationwide, but so I didn't need to study that, even though I'm always learning about our own new trends or whatnot for our own business, which we all should. I was really focused on how to finance, how do I structure, how do I build this thing, right? And then so that was for me, that was it. Even though I read other books, so one base for me, and it should be for everyone, is personal growth. I'm always learning about personal growth. So the Growth Day thing, the Darren Daily thing, Darren Hardy, right, which is a 5-minute clip every day. Those are musts. Every single morning, I don't do any of the other stuff, any of the other topics. That is for the road, for my breaks, for the like whenever I've got a little time, or maybe I'm making breakfast after I finish my personal development, my routines. I go into business mode. Like I've even been working. So, for example, one topic this whole year has been learning how to raise my child. Right. So I've got several books that's on top of the raising capital marketing. So that's another, at the same time, it's 70% business, 30% learning about how to raise a child. So that's two topics that I focus on, because some you can't leave. So it has to be some personal and some business as well. That's just how I operate.
Yeah. And George and I are partners in a few different deals, but what I feel like is so important is when we talked you talked about due diligence earlier on, about like you lost $300,000. We could have had probably a whole episode on that experience. But the crucial ingredient to, I feel like, joining a group, investing with somebody, is to know who you're doing business with. So I love everything you're saying, and just your drive, the ability to want to grow. I think you've said this needs to be in everybody. Totally agree. If you're ever in a state of, I figured everything out. I'm going to take a break on growing for a bit, you're only going to go backwards, or you're going to be uninteresting, or you're going to fall in some way. Love that about you, George. All right. Tell us about this newest venture. You got something under contract you're really excited about. Tell us about that for a little bit.
So, it took us 9 months to build this fund, right? So you and I have been friends for a while, and you heard a lot about the process and how difficult it is to put together something of that nature for the first time, right? I couldn't have done it without the mentorship and coaching of our group Race Masters, which we're both in. So once we finished, I had to figure out the next step, right? And any of it wasn't like, okay, I had it all figured out. I figured it out as I was going. And that's one of the biggest problems of people in today's day and age. They just get stuck into how, they never do it, or they quit, right? So it's not about the resources you have. It's truly about how resourceful you are, because we all have the internet, right? So, but the internet doesn't provide with the right people. So there's one more step above that. You can learn all you want about a topic or how to build a fund or how to how to become an investor. But once you start executing, that's when the problem becomes. So joining these types of groups for us has been a game changer. You already know this because that's where you meet true people like you that have other skills that complement yours, right? So as we launched this fund, we realized that we did not have the infrastructure to raise the capital, right? So we started building it. But at the same time, we were seeking out partners. I mean, you and I have done a couple of deals, and I mean, you already know where we stood as full-fledged operators, and then where you stood, and then we came apart and decided to figure this out, boom, and it worked. So now for us to do it at a bigger scale was, okay, how are we going to do this thing? Should we go and then work on single properties or try to raise capital one investor at a time, which is great, or partner with people like yourself and other fellows in the group that are strong, right? That have their unique skills. So for us, we've came to a point that we want to take bigger steps at one time. Mm-hmm. And that's where this portfolio comes in. We're under LOI right now. And you're not going to believe this. The portfolio is now 18 properties. I think I might have told you 12. It's scaled to 18 properties. The person selling it to us is going to provide the debt. So he's going to owner finance it to us at an interest only rate. Okay. It's going to finance it to us at interest only with a decent interest rate. He's also going to raise capital with us. And 1 to 2 million, and he is part of our group. The power of joining a powerful group like this, he's in Race Masters. The other partner, which is my partner, I found him through Race Masters. And the third person that we're working with in this group is also from Race Masters. So it's 1, 2, 3 Race Masters in our team, and one of those 3 is from Race Masters.
Wow,
insane, right?
The power of who, right?
The power of who.
But you also you put yourself in a position. Someone could say, oh, he just stumbled into this relationship with it. My question was, how did you find this guy? This guy seems like a huge role. And you've put yourself into learning positions, groups, networking, conferences, etc. You're always looking to connect. I think that's one of the things I'm working on right now is if I find myself just in this cubicle, in this conference room, which is where I'm at right now, and I'm just always in there, just like keeping my head down and working, something's wrong. Mm-hmm. I need to be out and like bumping shoulders, seeing people. Obviously, we're virtual right now, but so I love that, man. That's awesome. George, we're getting close on time here, and I just feel like we could have so much more to say. But I think I also want to say you've given so many like points of if you're not already doing this, you should be doing this. But speaking directly to the invested father, who is a hardworking individual trying to provide for their family, but more than that, provide themselves mindset, energy, time. What would you leave with our audience in light of a nugget, if you would? And also tell us how our friends and listeners can connect with you or can follow you.
Absolutely. I'll leave 2 nuggets, right? So one is when you are thinking about the future, right? Think more in terms of an end goal rather than a means goal. A means goal is I'm going to raise $1 million. I'm going to acquire 5 properties this year, right? An end goal is I'm going to create X amount of cash flow, $10,000 a year, so that me and my family can have a vacation every single year, or I'm going to create the means, right, to have a vacation, which is a $10,000 a year, to have a vacation. So the end goal is to have more freedom, financial freedom and time freedom, right? So I always lean in a mixture between an end goal and a means goal, right? So I put the means goal first, mm-hmm. so that I know what I'm working on. And then I put the end goal when I write my goals every day, which is another thing that I do every day, right? So every day is I'm going to do this. One of my goals is to be a 5 times New York Times bestselling author. So every day I just write, I'm going to be a 5 times New York Times bestselling author. So guess what? I've done it every day. So there has been a calling for me to write a book. So guess what I'm doing right now? I'm writing a book. And it's going to be another 6 months, 9 months before it comes out. But the end goal is not to write a book, right? So the end goal is to be the New York Times bestselling author, right? To me, that is an end, right? That is the pinnacle. of where the impact I want to make. Because I know that if I become a five times or a one-time New York Times bestselling author, the impact's there. That's it. One of my other goals is I'm going to have 100 vacation rentals all throughout the United States that allow me and my family to travel to amazing places when we want, right? So it's a mixture between the 100 and the travel amazing places. Ultimately, that's all we want. We want to have more time with our families. We want to have more freedom to spend with them. We want to have more freedom to financially be able to do all these things. So I'll focus on that. So number two is, so as you develop yourself as a father and you become a real estate investor or an investor of any kind, there's three things I personally focus on. And then three things I always just summarize everything with, right? So focus on process, focus on growth, and then focus on purpose. So for me, always focusing on my purpose is why am I doing the thing, right? Focus on growth. It allows me that once I found out my purpose, I'm always learning and growing. And then as I'm growing and I'm installing a new system or I'm launching a new business like this new investment vehicle, which is the fund, now focus on process, the third, as I'm switching and changing the approaches that I do to raise capital, to manage the fund, to operate, to deal with partners. So those three little things, three main elements for me are so golden, right? Always asking myself, why am I doing this, right? Always learning the new things throughout my quarters and then tweaking what I make mistakes on, tweaking who I deal with, the people that I work with. So that's it. And then lastly, GeorgeSalas360.com is my social media website. And then EmpressCapitalGroup.com is our company website. Thank you for having me.
No, George, great. And I love start with the purpose, figure out what you're doing. Why are you doing this? The part of change, I'd say, is the key because, yeah, build your foundation block. But if you're not doing anything, if you're not acting on it, then what's the point? George, dude, thank you so much. Really enjoyed this time together. We love you. We support you. And we're looking forward to just hearing updates on how things are going through everything you're working on. So thanks for your time today, buddy. We'll talk to you later.
Absolutely. Thank you, brother.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Invested Fathers Podcast. If you liked this episode, we would love for you to click subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. We appreciate all of your hard work as a father and look forward to our next episode together.